and welcome to In the Know with CaT Bobino. Today I have my co-host extraordinaire, Hey Dr. Tay, and we are talking about science and flying and everything in between. So I'm gonna let Dr. Tay and her wonderful guests introduce themselves.
Absolutely. So we're going to do this a little bit of the opposite way today. We're not going to start off with if then ambassadors. I definitely want to start off with Paul Wins and have him introduce himself. And then we'll go into who the if then ambassadors are. They're part of the journey. So I can give us a structure or a layout to this conversation. So Paul, tell us who you are.
All right. Thanks, Dr. Tay. You kind of put me on the spot. I thought I had a few more minutes to get my stuff together, but I think I'm going to pull it off. So hi, everyone. I'm Paul Wins. I'm the CEO of FlexAir. We're a flight school for veterans and minorities and really anybody who's aspiring to a career in aviation. And I am connected to the IFTHEN community through my beautiful partner, Samantha, who is also an IFTHEN ambassador. And kind of a co-creation between the two of us is I'm really passionate about the same things that she is, except in a different space. And in aviation, there's not very many women or people of color. And so this collaboration and what we're going to talk about today is intended to address that. And me, myself, I've been in aviation my whole life, really. My mom tells me that my first word was airplane. When I was in high school, I saw this little movie called Top Gun that maybe you might have heard of. And it was kind of all she wrote. After that, I joined the military. After that, I went to the U.S. Naval Academy. After that, I went to Navy flight school. I was a Navy pilot for many years. I worked in industry. I worked at Boeing for quite a while as well. And I quit a perfectly good paying job to be an entrepreneur. And that's what brought me to where I'm at today. So I'm super happy to talk about this. And Dr. Tam, I'm really glad that you chose to participate in this. I think we need more events like this. And I'm just really happy to talk about anything aviation today, which is a STEM field, by the way.
Thank you, because we're definitely going to talk about that too. A lot of people, when we think about aviation and just, riding a plane, going and traveling somewhere, we don't think about the STEM behind that, right? So we're definitely going to dive into that. Thank you for your intro. You actually did a great job. I don't know why you were a little shy or nervous at all. I'm just going to go according to my screen, and we'll start off with Gracie. Gracie, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, hi, I'm Gracie. I am a computer scientist, so I have a bachelor's and a master's in computer science. And my career has been all about building technology and using coding and artificial intelligence to help support environmental research. So I've gotten to work on projects related to all different types of endangered animals and helping scientists who study those animals, just building tools for them that help make their research a little bit easier. And now I'm really focused, my work is focused on building maps of the globe and mapping land use and land cover. So trees and crops and water and all across the globe. And then we're also looking at how that's changing over time using artificial intelligence and technology to help us build these maps a lot faster and track the changes that are happening much quicker than we could do just manually. So it's pretty exciting stuff.
That's so interesting. And I can already see a clear linkage between that and aviation. So I'm glad that you put some of those things out in the forefront. So it takes away from the guessing game for some of us. We're going to go down to Jasmine. Jasmine, congratulations. Newly married, newlywed. Are we still referring to you as Jasmine Sadler or?
Yes, I think that is my alias for now. And, Jasmine Sadler is my superhero name. And then my alternate ego will be Jasmine Johnson. But yes. But yeah, my name is Jasmine Sadler, and I'm an aerospace engineer and a ballerina. So my friends call me a dancing rocket scientist. I also left a perfectly good six-figure engineering job after 10 years as an engineer to work on my business full-time as the CEO and visionary of the STEAM Collaborative, so science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. And so I work full-time doing programming and consulting work and design work for informal education programs, so programs for kids that are out of school time, and also working with the adults so that we can make them better capable for our students. And I'm also a full-time doctoral student in education. So soon enough, I'll be Dr. Jasmine Johnson.
Yes, you will. Yes, you will.
Nice.
And we're definitely going to come back and talk about, leaving these six-figure positions to go into entrepreneurship very soon. So make sure you have your ideas ready about that conversation. And last but definitely not least, Dr. Wendy Bohan.
I mean, we can talk about it right now because I did the same thing. I left my six-figure job at NASA to open my own business. I mean, it's going around. It's catching. When you're with people that have big dreams and big ideas, you just hop on the train. You're inspired by the people that you're around, and you guys inspire me all the time. So I'm Wendy Bohan, and I'm an earthquake geologist. That's my training. Although I was an actress and a theater major in my previous life, and I bring all that with me, right? I have my science, and now my business is in science communication, teaching scientists how to communicate better, talking to people about why science matters, and talking to particularly women and girls about why it's important to be able to pursue whatever career lights your soul on fire, whether that's ballet or theater or aviation or science. We want to make sure that that's all open and available for people. So, that's why we're here talking to you about science and aviation. And, I'm married to a pilot who also went to the Naval Academy and who's still in aviation, and whose father was in aviation, and whose brother's in aviation. And so it's not lost on me that there are not a lot of women in aviation, because I've been in those spaces. And so when Paul and Sam invited me to be part of this situation, bringing together the IFBAN ambassadors and Flex Air, I jumped at the chance because, I thought it was really important that we open up all of these fields to anybody who might be interested in that, because whether it's, the earthquakes or data or the skies above us, those are for everybody.
I love that. Thank you.
Absolutely.
And Wendy covered the media for the day. So we're definitely going to dive into that as well, because I think a lot of the emotional ties to actually what we were doing, you captured it all, but also like you were living it with us at the same time, right? So we definitely want to get your insight to this, but we'll start, I guess, at the foundation. So of course, we're here to talk about the AviateHer initiative with Flex Air Flight School. And Paul, you made mention with this at the beginning about, trying to increase diversity within aviation. And I know a lot of us had conversations about what that meant for us. For me, for example, when I brought up me taking a piloting class, my family was like, "You're crazy, right? Like you're risking your life." And I think in my head, I kind of thought it too, but I was like, "Look, if I go out, this would be a great way to do it." So, and I kind of treat life like that across the way, because I don't believe in fearing in things. But, I think it's that stigma, that negative stigma that carries on with us. And a lot of times with the history of being women in this society, we're always taught to be the fragile ones, the one that protects ourselves because we're needed to be in the household and just do the household stuff. So let's talk about that some, even starting with the demographic in aviation. Paul, give us some insight I know it doesn't look too good when it comes to women's representation in the field, but tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, there's many decades of demographic trends, that really a lot of it is baked into society. A lot of it is baked into just who was even eligible in the first place. Because up until quite recently, the number one source of pilots for the commercial world were pilots from the military. And so everyone just kind of assumes that, even though this is no longer true, not by a long shot, but everyone always assumes, well, in order to become a pilot, you must have been a military pilot. And then those are the only people that they're going to want to hire, into the airlines or any other type of, whether it's aviation for, private individuals, corporate aviation, cargo. There's just all kinds of different places that you can go and be a professional pilot other than just the airlines. But the assumption has been, well, they're only going to hire military people. And for the most part, that was true up until, I would say, the 90s and the early 2000s. That began to shift mostly because the military is shrinking. It's now, just a fraction of the size that it was for pilots. And also because the airlines have been growing. Lots and lots of people are traveling more by air, more than any time period before. And so and then finally, there's the actual age of airline pilots, 50%, just about, maybe a little bit less, but about 50% of every pilot that you see that's flying professionally right now today is going to have to retire within a decade. So there's this incredible turnover as the baby boomer generation, which traditionally, only men would go into these professions. So it's this confluence of many things. And so where are we at right now? There's a lot of work to do. Less than 5% of professional pilots are women or people of color. That's it. And this is after many, many decades of focused effort from nonprofits, from the airlines, from flight schools, everyone really trying to pull on the rope in the same direction. But it just has been very, very slow to change. And so you could write a lot on why that is. But, really what I'm interested in is what can you do that's different to maybe open up this career, just expose just even the idea of flying to people who wouldn't even consider it in the first place. You need to do it at scale. It's going to take a long time to turn things around, but it all begins with individual stories, hopefully like the ones that we saw, this year at this event.
Absolutely. I agree. So, let's dive into some of these stories from some of our actual IFTN ambassadors who took our piloting lessons for the first or second time, because I think that was your second time, right, Jasmine? Okay. So let's talk about that. Gracie, how did you feel about your, lesson, your chance to be a captain for the day?
Yeah. It was so cool. It was different than I expected in terms of I thought it would be, we'd go up there and I'd get to maybe touch the steering wheel one time and then turn things back over to the professional. But my instructor gave me a lot of opportunity to steer, and he was explaining everything to me. And it wasn't just for show that we were doing this. We really got a flight lesson. And it was really cool. And just, it felt honestly a lot kind of like driving a car in some ways. It wasn't as, you have to be doing all these different things at once. It was pretty, straightforward. And I had a blast.
Right. And I think that was the best part of it, was learning that it was kind of like learning how to drive a car, where the pilot that was giving you the lesson had their own set of everything: steering wheel, brake, everything to keep you safe. Right. And that brought me a lot of confidence in being able to get into the air and not punk out last minute, because because there was still a possibility. Right.
Oh yeah.
And then I like that you brought up, actually being able to have a chance to do more than just say, okay, I touched the steering wheel. I remember, Jasmine, when you got out of the plane, you were telling us being able to take off and land, or one or the other.
Yeah, I mean, of course, not with full control, but you have to change the throttle and do other things that changes the fuel and the air ratio and all the things. As an aerospace engineer, I kind of have some insight on that. But them saying, okay, do the throttle, and I'm like, okay, and so while I'm not the main one steering it, but it's not that difficult once everything's kind of ready to land or ready to take off. It's just really about controlling it and keeping it more steady than anything. It wants to move, and it's flying through this air that has dynamic changes, so aerodynamics. So it's flying through air, and so the main thing is to try to keep that steering wheel straight and level, than trying to do a bunch of things with the steering wheel.
Right. And then Wendy, I know you were capturing pre and post surveys of all of our emotions during the trip. What were some of those things that came across to you during our experiences and afterwards?
Yeah, it was such a joy to watch all of you with varying levels of excitement and trepidation. I'm not going to say fear, I would say trepidation, because everybody was a little nervous, but more excited. And you get in and you're listening very closely. And I remember, Dr. Tay, you got out and you were like, whoa! And Gracie was like, that was so much easier than I was expecting. But everybody got out, and everybody was, to be honest, everybody goes, that was awesome. Every single one of you said awesome. So that was the tagline for the whole thing, is fly with FlexAir. It's awesome. Because that really was what you came out of it with, was like this real joy and sense of accomplishment. So it was great to see that transition.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that that's amazing. And so I'm just going to jump in right now because my brother's a pilot, and he was in the Navy. He learned how to fly in the Navy. He's a pilot. I always forget what airline because I don't get free tickets, so I don't pay any attention. But I think American is who he flies for, and so I'm just like, cool. I don't know about me being in the cockpit, but hearing the stories and seeing, I know it's not easy, but like, having someone there can show you the way. Now I'm more like, okay, maybe I can, even though I really have a fear of flying because I almost crashed in China when I was like 20. Still have a fear, but I know it's the fastest way. So I'm like, I'm still going to do it, but I don't like it. But maybe this would help me get over my fear because FlexAir, is that in LA?
We're in San Diego. So we've got 3 locations.
Okay.
So San Diego is where we were doing the lessons for San Diego Comic-Con this year. But we also have a couple of bases, one near Kansas City and another one about 2 hours to the west in Manhattan, Kansas, which is also a college town. But, if I could jump in and talk about that, trepidation versus fear, right? And also what also came up was the are you crazy, right? You're going to go fly type of a thing. And there's a lot kind of wrapped up in this. It's part of why I think, and I'm biased, but why I think flying is special, right? Where there's this element of risk, despite the fact that we've been doing it for over 100 years, and literally the biggest, the most I would say the most disciplined confluence of all kinds of different engineering subjects comes together in aviation. Safety, the whole concept of safety culture and having an organizational safety culture, that comes from aviation, right? We pioneered that as a way to be organizationally really safe about doing things. So even though it comes from its like death-defying, barnstorming types of origins, the way aviation is today is really disciplined, very structured, but still it has this magical feel to it. And I will say there's a bunch of reasons for that. 2 that I like to dwell on, and I'm wondering if you ladies saw it, is 1, the overview effect. This is something that has been termed by astronauts who went into the space for the first time and saw the Earth, as a full unit. And yeah, you don't have to be, whether you're at 500 feet or 500,000 feet, you're going to get an overview effect. You're going to see the world around you in a different way. And the other thing that I really like is I talk a lot with my students that kind of discover that I'm a hippie, despite of the fact that I've got my background, is the flow state. There is too much going on in various phases of flight, especially during the landing phase, where you have to let your subconscious take over. Your mind is processing things faster than you can consciously understand them. That's why the training is very important. It creates these habit patterns. And there is nothing in this world that is like being in that zone and really nailing a landing or doing a maneuver perfectly. And, it's kind of hard to do that in today's world that's mediated by technology and screens, right? We're up there in the real world. You're doing something in a plane where you're one with the environment. So that's what's special about it for me, and the movie Top Gun, but I'll leave it there. So yeah.
So Paul, first of all, okay. So first of all, I want to say thank you to everyone who is watching live, either on Facebook or YouTube. But we did have a question in the chat from Renee. So how long does it actually take to get in the air? So in other words, how long is the training process?
Right. And that's a great question. It depends on, there's the training process, which has to do with various licenses that the FAA is the organization. The Federal Aviation Administration are the ones who set up the licensing process. So it depends on your goal. If you want to go to the airlines, that's a very long and as you might expect, a very long and involved training process. But if you just want to fly for fun, let's say it's on your bucket list to be able to take a plane, check it out, fly it from point A to point B, and go eat lunch and fly it back. It's called the $500 hamburger, but now it's $1,000 adjusted for inflation. But if you want to do that, that's only about 5 or 6 months to get a private pilot license. If you want to go all the way to the airlines, that's probably going to take you about a year to get all of the licenses, and then about a year after that, working as a flight instructor to get all of the hours that you need in order to be eligible for your first hire. So you could, could be very quick, but if you want to do it as a career, it's going to be a little bit longer of a journey.
Okay. And Jasmine, you wanted to add to what Paul was talking about being up in the air?
Yeah, I guess from a nerdy perspective, aerospace type thing, that's one thing that is different than mechanical engineering and civil engineering, really, is that this 3D effect. And then we learn everything with X, Y, and Z axis. And so, when we're have our graph paper, everything has a z-axis, and the z-axis is kind of like downward, negative. And so everything we're learning with torque and how things are moving in the air with physics are all three-dimensional in aerospace. And so it's compared to mechanical engineering, where things move in 2 dimensions, like cars or an elevator going up and down and a car going in 2 dimensions, or civil engineering is really engineering things that don't move at all, like bridges or buildings or freeways, things that you don't want to move. There's also physics and other factors that need to be considered for things you don't want to move, and then things that you want to move. And so in aerospace, civil and mechanical, they're all pretty much related. But that's why rocket scientists kind of get a even better rap, is that we have to deal with multivariable calculus and integrals, and doing it with the X, Y, and Z axis, not just one axis. No offense, Wendy, by the way.
In geophysics and earthquakes, we also deal with 3 dimensions, because the Earth, the crust is 3-dimensional, so waves go in all the directions.
Yep.
See, I was going to say,
I'm all for the nerdy explanation.
Right.
All for it. Please share it.
Right. That's what I was going to say. I feel like all of us could walk away seeing a STEM aspect to this that could be different from the next person, right? For me, I was like, of course, because it's the first time, was blown by the pressure, the altitude, being 3,500 feet above land, and this pilot allowing me to take control of the steering wheel above people's houses, right? To me, that's what was going on in my mind completely. For Gracie, what came across your head as far as the STEM related to your journey as a pilot for the day?
Yeah, so I definitely loved flying over the ocean, because I've done a lot of stuff with like whales and dolphins and studying them. So I was looking for animals, but also with my work now, we use satellite images to train AI to be able to build these maps and to see what's happening on the ground. And so it was pretty cool to look at these satellite images all day, and being in the plane felt like I was looking at a real life satellite image or something. I could see everything sort of from the same perspective as the pictures that I'm usually looking at. So I thought that was pretty cool.
That was a great point, because I remember at one point we were sitting in the room with Paul, and Paul, you were looking at the satellite visions of our journey. Can you talk about that a little bit? I wish I had the images to put up, because at one point I was like, are you going to be tracking? Am I going to be the horrible pilot that goes off track and needs to be brought back?
No, not at all. You didn't even come close. The way, and there's so many different technical layers to air travel. And, we just kind of take it for granted, right? If I asked who's traveled by air recently, we probably all raise our hand, right? It's just kind of baked into modern experience. And so what I was accessing was what's called ADS-B. And that is, think of it as like a tracker, like an AirTag tracker that's on every single aircraft. And so the FAA can keep track of who is where, which you need to do for traffic control purposes. And so what I was doing is just pulling up the public feed, and I knew what tail numbers, what license plate numbers to type in for the 2 planes that you folks were flying around in. And so I could bring that up, and you could see, the track history and everything overlaid on essentially a Google map. And so, these things, it's really kind of miraculous that we can do this, right? That a small plane that, is privately operated by, and giving out some flight lessons it has GPS in the plane. Then that GPS location fix is then, it's called ADS-B out. And so it's a surveillance system. And so the GPS location of the plane is being transmitted out, received by the FAA, then compiled in a national database for every aircraft in the US that's under control of the FAA. And anybody can access a bunch of websites to see where every plane that is in the US is flying at any given time. It's really miraculous that all happens. And that's before you even get into the radar and the radio transmissions that you probably heard while you were in the plane, which is another method of controlling and managing air traffic. So yeah, all I had to do is type in a website. It was easy, and you didn't even come close. I didn't try to call the Pentagon to come and get you back.
I think I've seen something like that with all the lines of all the planes flying over at one time, and it's amazing how many planes are in the air at once, because there's so many planes that you can see if you go, I don't know what the website is, but I think I've seen it before. And I see my cousin jumped in, Jeffrey, talking about he just completed ground school again at Red Sky Aviation. Right, absolutely loves flying. He retired not too long ago, so he's, I guess, going to get back into flying. I'm more of a newbie. I don't necessarily want a $500 burger, but I would love the experience, trying it, one time. So it sounds really amazing. So how did Flex Air get with If Then and the Comic-Con aspect? How did that all come together?
It's one of these things where this is the reason why people say you should network, right? Now, part of it was easy because, my partner, Samantha, she's an If Then ambassador, but also for a long time, I had wanted to do something to increase visibility for aviation careers, or even just aviation for, people that wouldn't normally be exposed to it or even have a chance to participate. And I had this vision to do it, but I just didn't understand the venue to go and do it. And really what happened was, it was this confluence of, there were a bunch of ambassadors that were going to be coming to Comic-Con anyway, which is the largest pop culture event of its kind in the world, really. And it was one of those, opportunistic things where I basically, asked Samantha, I'm like, do you know anybody who would like to fly and get a free flight lesson? And it would be a legit flight lesson. It wouldn't be tourism. And the mission is, hey, I'd like to do X and Y and Z, all the stuff that we've been talking about here. And really it was this combination of, I happen to know somebody who is really great and has a great community. But also, this would look and feel very differently if it was not so focused on the mission of increasing representation, right? It would be more of a stunt or a publicity thing. It would just look and feel a little bit different. So I think the vision and the motivation behind it really kind of mattered too. But this is all a long way of saying it was a happy accident in many ways. I know people in medium places, so it was a good accident.
If I could just add to what Paul said, I thought it was a really good combination of where our missions really dovetailed together, because the If Then ambassadors, our tagline is, if she can see it, then she can be it. Mm-hmm. Because so often, people can't see themselves in a particular career. And so, less than 5% of women are professional pilots. And if we can raise the visibility and show that this is something that women can do, women can excel at, women can enjoy, all different kinds of women, then people can look at that and say, oh, I didn't realize this was something for me. This was something that I could do. This is something that I could have access to also. So it really did fit both of our missions, and was, I think, a great experience for all of the ambassadors involved, but also, really great for Flex Air, really great for women in aviation, really great for If Then. So it was a win-win-win all around.
Right.
I agree.
I would extend it even further and say, afterwards, when we shared it on our socials to our family and our friends, it inspired those other individuals as well, right? Those who couldn't be there, didn't even know this was going on, may have just been scrolling on their timeline and saw a picture or a video or something that we posted and were like, oh my goodness. Like, I know for some of us, for me, for instance, I'm a girly girl. I love makeup and doing my hair and having my nails done, and usually lipstick and so on. So when people saw the image of that Black girl in the captain seat with the makeup on, hair done, nails done, it also shows a different perspective of representation in aviation that we don't see often as well, right? I know a lot of times we hear about it when it comes to the athletes and them being able to show up as their authentic selves and be whoever they wanted to be that day and still be, respected in that role or whether it's their athleticism or their career. So I think it was great being able to kind of push that storyline, and that confidence and motivate others in that way. Definitely.
Dr. Tay, you got some heat for that online.
Woo!
I saw an interaction where somebody said,
I did not want to talk about. So what Wendy is
you
referring
hit back.
to.
You did. I thought you did real well answering that question. Like, kudos to you.
Thank you.
Kudos to you.
I appreciate that because I did. So Paul doesn't know, and I don't think Gracie, you may know. I don't know. So I did post that video of me in the pilot seat and flying the plane. I had red lipstick on that day, my black and white if then shirt, my lab coat on. Hair was done. It may not have been mine, but it was mine that day. And that's who I am. A lot of times when I come into these places, and for some reason, a male that I would keep his name disclosed, commented on my picture and said, but all that fake hair and makeup on. And it kind of took away from what we were there to do, which was, this representation, increasing representation, being able to show up in these spaces as whatever I was that day and be unapologetic about it and be confident in that what I was trying to do. So instead of me blocking him, cussing him out, or whatever else I could have done as Tay, I took the Hey Dr. Tay role or the Dr. Latasia Jones role, and I educated him and let him know that's very sad that that's how he feels. And that's a lot of times what prevents women like ourselves from being in these spaces is the inability to be in these spaces as our authentic selves. So it took a lot of growth to get to this point.
So thank you for sharing that. I didn't know that had happened. Sadly, that is more common than you would think, especially in aviation, because there's like two things at play that I've noticed. One is aviation is at its root, it comes from a military background because of its origins, right? We have captains and first officers, aboard our aircraft. The public really wants to see people who are authority figures. So airlines kind of continue with what is a very traditionally defined role that may happen to look masculine in a lot of people's eyes. Even the terminology that the FAA uses for things that are fairly neutral, like, well, who's in charge? What are we going to call the pilot? Well, we call the pilot who is actually in charge of the aircraft, who is responsible for the final word on safety and operations of the aircraft. This is what we train people for when we train them to fly solo. When you're flying an aircraft and you're solo in the aircraft and you're in control of it, or if you're the senior pilot on an aircraft, you're called the pilot in command. Not the pilot in control, not some sort of like neutral word, but command, right? And I personally love that word because that is everything that I love about aviation, about accountability, about safety, about responsibility. But command also has some freight to it where people are going to look at that and say, oh, you must look buttoned down. You should not look like you're having fun while you're in command. You should not look whimsical or be in a costume or be in some other thing. And I challenge that. And that's why we've set up, the event the way that we do during Comic-Con, where there's a little more permission, to be your authentic self. But yeah, you can absolutely be your authentic self when you're in command. In fact, that's probably better for better outcomes, for cognitive diversity on the flight deck, for people being able to speak up about safety. So, at the very surface, and I'm sorry that you had to go through that, Dr. Tay, at the surface, there's a troll on the internet, big news. But when you kind of peel back the onion, you see that, I think a lot of it has to do with that is we just assume commanding presences look a certain kind of way. And I think that's partly what's going on as well. So it's complicated. It's complicated, but thank you for striking a blow for freedom.
Absolutely. Thank you. And if we could replicate Paul a million times, it'd be so great. The world would be so much better.
Right. let me shout out, my cousin Jeffrey said his CFI and ground school instructor was a female.
I
So,
noticed.
Shout out to that.
It's great.
Yeah. And then I just got a text message. My brother's in town. He's with my mom. And he's have this podcast, the video live on her TV right now. So they're watching it. So I'm going to shout out my mom and my brother. So thank you for doing that. And, but yeah, now I have to do my own ask, which, my tagline, my calling is demystifying and diversifying STEM.
Mm-hmm.
So if that aligns, can I come to San Diego and get a free?
Oh my goodness. Let me know when you're available. Come on out. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, yes, this is STEM and again, I'm biased, right? But where else can you go into a discipline where you see everything converge in a really tangible way? And you could look at every layer of this, like, Jasmine was talking about the intersection of a lot of where mechanical engineering and different types of engineering converge. There's also human cognition. If you're interested in the psychological sciences like I am, there's the way humans interact in this dynamic environment to achieve the desired outcome or make mistakes sometimes. There's everything about the atmosphere and atmospheric science, weather, meteorology, the vehicles themselves, automation and computer science and all of that. It's all in there. So whatever your flavor of the month is, it's there.
Some other ones, Paul, like aviation itself, of just like the flight control devices, the different gauges that are in there, and making sure they actually work, and then even human machine interface. So the fact that all of the controls are around the steering wheel and near the pilot, and things that are bad flash red. Like that is really on purpose, so just a lot of other sciences that, just being in aerospace or majoring in aerospace, you can take it a lot of different ways. And so there's other majors that you can major in school, or even at a trade school with avionics, with manufacturing, making sure it is all built properly. And then that's what I was in towards the end of my career, was in quality control for aircraft engines, repairing aircraft engines. And so all of that can be something.
Agree. 100%.
Absolutely. My brother's major was math. You bring it all the way down, math, and that's, you can't do anything without that.
Right.
So, STEM is always in pretty much everything. I as someone in science, I never want to do an absolute and say, yep, everything is STEM. But, STEM is just everywhere. You can't get away from it.
I couldn't agree more. I absolutely agree. So I do have a random question, and there are probably going to be a few random questions that I never got to ask. Why the Cessna?
Oh, yeah. The Cessna is an iconic aircraft, right? And so the Cessna 172 was designed in the 1950s during the Apollo era by a bunch of dudes with slide rules. That plane has not changed since then. I mean, it's a classic. It's like the 69 Mustang of general aviation planes. It's a dependable aircraft. It has a very simple, and by simple I don't mean unsophisticated. It's a very elegant design. It works. The engines that are in them are the original design, and the flight decks have so the instrumentation and controls, those have changed quite a bit since the 50s, and those have evolved, and you can get Cessnas with touch screens and beautiful all glass GPS and advanced displays. But at the end of the day, it's still the same structure, the same engine, because the laws of physics have not changed, despite the fact that technology has gotten much, much better. So it's ubiquitous. A Cessna 172, you can find it on every single flight line at every single small airport. We are a smaller flight school. We're a startup flight school. We're using Cessnas that we purchased off the secondary market, and we take great care of them and lavish, attention and love to them to keep them going. There's going to be some changes in our future. We're going to upgrade to all electric aircraft, but those are a little bit further down the road. But in the meantime, the Cessna is where it's at. It is a fantastic aircraft and a great design.
Everything is going to be electric, even the things in the air. That is
100%. Yeah.
Something else that I learned when they let us in the pilot seat was that, they're pretty difficult to crash. That
They're stable.
They're stable. They regulate
Right.
a lot better, a lot easier than some other things. So they're really good to learn on as well.
That's reassuring. So
Yeah.
to those of you who are looking at this video, be reassured by the safety behind the flight lesson. Okay, even the craft, the actual aircraft is safe.
Yeah, in aviation and in air vehicle design, there's this concept called stability margin. And so if you can imagine stability as, positive stability, negative stability, or neutral, right? If you displace the aircraft away from what you were trying to have it do, and it just naturally moves back to an equilibrium, that's positive stability. And so in roll, pitch, and yaw, Cessna and every training aircraft that looks like that, they're a very docile aircraft. If you let go of the controls, the aircraft is going to just naturally want to go back to equilibrium, which, to the human, that makes it where it's just very low effort to control the aircraft, and which is exactly what you want in a trainer. Now, if you're trying to do aerobatics in it, that's not a very good choice for many reasons. But, there's a trade-off when you design an aircraft between maneuverability and stability, and Cessnas and trainer aircraft are more towards stability. So that you just kind of let go of the aircraft and it just keeps going in a straight line, which is exactly what you want for a trainer.
Which is not what I was going to do at all, by the way.
It's okay. We were going to keep you honest. That's why I'm a great flight instructor. So they were going to keep you honest.
Absolutely. So I know, Kat, there's some comments. I don't know where we're at in the comments.
Oh, yeah. Ari said, great conversation. Jeffrey said, no matter what planes are there, Bonanza or whatever, a GA enthusiast will always go to a Cessna.
It's true.
So, I have no idea. So I just say, yeah, sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds right. Sounds good.
New to all of us. Well, if Paul said it, I believe it. I'm going to be honest.
So Dr. Tay did send me some links about Flex Air. So, I can highlight a little bit. I think there's a video, right? Possibly.
Yes. So
let's take a look.
One of the PRs sent a few things for us to look at.
Okay. Is that one on the TikTok?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, let me go first share the flight school. So goflexair.com is the website. So here's the website and I'm guessing that's a Cessna, or that was a Cessna that was just there because, I don't know anything about planes, honestly. Oh, wait, you guys can't see it. Oh, my God.
Now we see it.
Here it is. Here's the website. Here it is. Go Flex Air. That's the website. Paul, is there anything you want to say about the website or that I should highlight?
Yeah, I would say, fundamentally, there's two types of pilots that we work with. There are what we call, hobby pilots, where you're passionate about this as a hobby. And then there are career pilots, and you're passionate about it because you want to be a professional pilot. Really, our specialty, we welcome all pilots. Our specialty are those career pilots. And the reason why what makes us different, where we're able to specialize in that, is we believe that the pilot shortage is actually a mentorship shortage. And so you'll see that a lot in our website, where it's not enough to learn how to fly. You've got to learn how to navigate this career field and the networking and, the diversity gap, especially if you are coming from one of these underrepresented populations. We especially focus on veterans, near and dear to my heart, and helping folks like them get into careers. So we're all about career aviation. If you want to fly as a hobby, we will do it. We will love to work with you, but just realize that we're going to treat you like a professional, and we're going to hold you to those standards, but we still want to love to have you. But yeah, feel free to get in touch with us through the website. We have some forms there that you can use to connect to our recruiters, and most of the veterans end up talking to me. We also have a dedicated recruiter for civilian pilots as well, and we would love to talk to you.
Awesome. Dope.
I love that a lot of general topics such as mentorship and the importance of mentorship goes across every field, right? And I'm glad you touched on that. So when I send you the email and ask you to come back for your independent interview, we're going to need to talk more about those things as well.
Yeah, absolutely. When you look at the numbers of dropout rates for the aviation industry overall and flight training, the dropout rate for the flight school industry overall, even the middle of this shortage where we're desperate for pilots, their dropout rate is 80%, 80%. So 8 student pilots who begin training never finish. And I haven't seen that yet cross-sectionalized by gender or any type of other demographic background. I'm sure that's not a good news story, but just 8 out of 10. And so the way that we address that and the way that we've gotten our numbers to where our pass rate is 90%, so our dropout rate is 10%. That we've worked with a lot of things. The number one impact that I see that works is people have got to have a role model. People have got to know that somebody's in their corner, and that person has to be separate and distinct from the instructor, because the stakes are high with an instructor. They need somebody who they can have an informal relationship with and give them some advice and just hold space for them when they're having a hard time, and be an ear or a sounding board for them. So I think that that's kind of a truism for any kind of technical or challenging career field, right? Mirrors a lot of the stories that and the research that I'm seeing in STEM as well. So we borrowed from that for sure.
Absolutely. And it's very intentional. Your strategy is very intentional, having them separate from the actual person they're learning from. Absolutely intentional. And it makes sense, right? You want to make sure it's somebody that doesn't have too much conflict, and somebody that they feel comfortable going to regardless of the situation. So I love that. I love that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I wanted to bring up, you brought it up, but I was going to say, it mirrors what happens in STEM, especially with women in STEM and the numbers when it comes to women in STEM, because, it's a part of it's mentorship, a part of it is work-life balance, and, finding that balance and finding someone who's achieved that balance previously to you. So, that number of women in STEM is probably, I'm not going to say it mirrors women in aviation, but I can see how they can concur, where, it's just finding that mentor and finding that work-life balance and showing and being able to prove that, yeah, we belong there too. So I like that you have brought that up.
That reminds me of what Dr. Tay was saying earlier with some of the comments she got online that are implicitly saying you don't belong in that space. You are not okay there. But to have a mentor there telling you every day, you belong, you're good at this. I want you to counteract some of those messages that we get daily, as people that are underrepresented in these spaces, I think is a huge thing. So I do commend FlexAir for making that and making it intentional.
Right. Absolutely. And even before we have enough women who can be the mentors in these spaces, I thank God for having, of course, the If Then ambassadors there, but also Paul. It was very reassuring to hear you welcoming all of us to take these lessons, right? So regardless of who it comes from, just having somebody that has already been there, has the credentials across the board saying, oh, you've got this, you're okay, So that worked out and was one of the motivational factors for the day as well.
I'm so glad to hear that. Yeah, the thing that I've learned from working in this field, my entire life, and now, as running this school, is that it's not enough to be welcoming, right? You can open the door, but then something else has to happen to get this critical mass of people coming in. And I think it's the mentors, and mentorship can come in many different forms. Like I consider it really key, and this is why we want to continue this program and have it happen every year, and you're all invited. Is I think it's very important for people to tell stories about, this was my experience. Maybe I'm not going to go the whole way. Maybe I'm not going to go on this as a career. I have another career field, but hey, I got into an aircraft. I took up space. I had a positive experience. I learned a lot, and I succeeded. And now I'm going to talk about it. I think people really need to see that, because aviation is very conservative. It's a very buttoned down, career field. And I think we need some alternative ambassadors, folks like yourselves, to go and do that. So it's going to take a lot of non-standard recruiting in order to get us to where we want to go.
Absolutely.
I love it. And I'm not an If Then ambassador, but I'll just be at Comic-Con next year and just join in anyway.
Come on over.
And just be a part of it. And so Jeffrey said there's There will be difficult subjects and persons need study partners. Mentors are important, very much so. And he says some of us will help you. I don't know if he means men helping women or if he means, mentors helping someone. But hey, as long as someone's willing to help, I think that's the most important part of this.
Some of the mentorship is connecting students with students. This is something that we try to do, especially with our veteran communities, because there needs to be mutual support, right? There needs to be, whether it's study group or just knowing that somebody else is struggling, because it's only ever you in an aircraft with one instructor. Unlike a classroom environment where you can see, oh, maybe I'm on the same level or other people are having trouble with this. You only ever see you as a data point. And unless somebody shares, which is something that I try to do very much whenever I talk to a student, let me tell you about how bad I was at landings when I first started. Let me tell you about the grade sheet for Neil Armstrong in the Smithsonian Institute. That is his grade sheet from Navy flight training that shows that he was bad at landings when he first started. So you need to put students together in the same room to share that so that people can understand, oh yeah, we're all struggling. It sucks for everybody at the beginning. So that's a key part of it as well, the study groups.
On that same note, I reached out to Paul on the side after, because after flying with you guys, well, I've flown in a Cessna twice before. One of my friends is a pilot, and so he went accompanied for one of his certifications, and then he took me, just us two, and then I actually flew in the pilot seat with FlexAir, and then even after that, I'm part of this military program on STEM education, and they took me up. So after that, I'm like, okay. I might be interested.
Yes.
So reached out to Paul, and even after that, I ran into another woman at my co-working space who's an entrepreneur, but it's been her lifelong dream to fly. And I kind of mentioned it to her, or something happened, or she saw my Instagram page, and she was like, it's been my lifelong dream. My husband persuaded me not to do it. He's now passed away. So she's like, let's be accountability buddies, and let's do this together. It's her lifelong dream. It's something. And so for me, like Paul was mentioning, knowing other students, but also that accountability that can really happen, that, we've all experienced in STEM, but, as I don't know, I guess when I was 17 going to major in aerospace engineering, I thought I could do anything. I don't know, but, becoming an adult, and it's like, this is something that, I don't know, I'm feeling that actual trepidation on pursuing something further, more than I was afraid to get into the air. And so yeah, we'll see. I still have to figure out where married life is going to take me. But if I'm here, shy of another year, then I think I'll definitely really go forward with getting my pilot's license.
The universe is putting it in your path.
Oh, yeah.
I know.
Yes.
Whether you want it or not. I think it's amazing that you touched on a few things that we don't talk about often, right? A lot of times when people think of individuals in STEM careers, they think we're just fearless and we are ready to take on everything. Like, okay, I'm skydiving today and hot air ballooning tomorrow, and I'm going to learn how to be a pilot the next day. And, each one comes with its own challenges and its thought process and whether or not you're ready or feel confident enough to do it, right? So I appreciate you bringing up there is a level of getting myself prepared for this mentally and emotionally, and whether or not I want to do that. And I know it happens across the board, but I think that's something we don't talk about often, even if it's being married or dating or becoming a mother or father or whatever else, right? We don't talk about the challenges that come into that, because a lot of times people are like, well, you're a scientist. Obviously, everything else in life is easy for you. It's not.
Yeah. I'm still terrible at biology, still.
Be still my heart. That's my favorite thing in science and biology. Oh my God. I can't believe you said that. Gracie, did you have something you wanted to add?
Oh, that's so cool, Jasmine, that you're going forward with it. When I guess I maybe didn't explain like well enough what this experience was going to be when I was talking to my grandparents about it. And so then after I took the one flight lesson, my grandpa texted me and he was like, "Oh, you're going to become a pilot. That's so cool." And he was in the Air Force. He was a pilot in the Air Force for forever. And he was like, "I'll renew my license. We'll fly together." So now I'm like, well, Jasmine's doing it. Now maybe I need to do it too.
Well, Wendy, look, Wendy.
I got enough pilots in the family. I love it. I think it's cool, but like it's not my jam. I appreciate it. I appreciate the science and the engineering behind it. I like seeing the faults from the air, but like the Earth is my planet. I'm gonna stay on it.
Love it. Okay, we are coming at time. I did want to share your TikTok video.
Yes.
So let me do that right quick before we run out of time. Here we go. This time made me make sure I actually turn it on so you guys can see it. All right. Yeah.
And I feel like the Barbie. I'm a doll, but I still wanna party. Pink felt like I'm ready to bend. I'm a 10, so I pull in a Ken. Like Jazzy, Stacy. And I felt like the Barbie.
Okay.
I love that. And Wendy did that. Wendy produced that.
Oh, that one wasn't mine.
Nice.
That was the production team.
Where the clips?
Nice.
But they
Well, I
were,
guess
that
if
was
you want to
good.
learn
They
more
should have
about,
used I should have used the Barbie. I didn't even think about that.
That was great.
I love it. So if you want to know more about GoFlex Air, the website, goflexair.com, they have a TikTok, they have a Facebook, have an Instagram, and you can, I think, is there any other ways we can find you, Paul?
X,
No,
you're on Twitter.
We're on Twitter as well. Yeah. And if you go ahead and go to our website and we'll put you on our mailing list. We have a new series that I've started called View from the Flight Deck, which is just interviews with and conversations with FlexAir alumni and friends of the FlexAir alumni network. Recently, we had someone from United Airlines who graduated from our flight school recently. We're going to talk to somebody who's currently flying for Alaska Airlines. We've also talked to some folks who are flying corporate aviation and everything in between. So it's intended as, again, focused on these people who have been there and done that so that you can just ask questions. And it's for people of all ages and experience levels. We get a lot of folks who are aspiring pilots. We get people who are flight instructors who want to know how to get hired at that airline, and everybody in between. So come by our website and ask about that. We'll get you on the mailing list. It's in a couple of weeks and I can send you all the details.
Nice.
Super dope. I want to thank you all for joining us tonight, sharing your stories. I learned a lot. I had no desire to go into the air, but I might. I mean, if Dr. Tay can do it, I guess I can do it.
Look at that.
Because I live in jealousy. So like, if you've done it, I'm just like, I have to.
I thought you were just motivated, not jealous.
I call a spade a spade.
CaT, I think CaT, you're the only one on the screen who hasn't.
Nope. And I live in Oakland, Paul, so San Diego is not very far. I can definitely go down there. Not at any time, but
let us know. Come on out anytime. Yeah. And this is the thing is there are startups that have cool products and cool software and AI and technology, but my startup can offer a free flight lesson to you. So you come on anytime and we'll have you over.
I have 4 witnesses who heard that. So yes, I will be doing that, Paul. I have no idea when though. So
all right, let us know. Me and Jasmine are going to work on you. We're going to chip away at you. So yeah, it's a team effort.
Okay. Well, thank you guys again. I don't know if anyone has anything else they want to add. This hour kind of flew by rather quickly.
It did. Yes. Thank you all for being here. We will definitely be asking for you all to come back on for your independent interviews because we want to dive into your careers, really talk about leaving these careers and going to your passion projects and entrepreneurship and talk about these journeys. There's a lot of conversations that we don't have out in the open. I know it can motivate others. So I would love to hear those on your own 1 hour segment. So we'll be in touch very soon. And thank you to everybody who tuned in today, of course, right? Like, thank you for listening to us for an hour, talk about aviation and all of the things that we touched on, whether it was diversity in aviation, STEM in aviation, aviation journeys, mentorship, and so on. I think this was an incredible conversation. We touched on a lot of things that people can learn about across the board. And I want to continue the conversation if CaT allows me to come back, because
always
these are some courageous topics, and she keeps saying yes and approving it. And I'm like, I don't know why she lets my crazy self come up with these things. But I appreciate the space, CaT.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you. Well, I guess we will give you guys back your Wednesday. So good night to everyone who joined us, and we'll have a great night.